I know some people have been talking about this. Kwite. This is like, he's some popular, I think, YouTuber or something. And I haven't heard anything about this. I didn't even know who the fuck Kwite was before today. Oh, he's like actually a pretty big YouTuber. 1.83 million subs. That's a lot. Okay. He's a commentary channel. I used to really like his content. I don't know anything about I don't know who this guy is at all. The quick TLDR is that a person came out and said that Kwite made them very uncomfortable and that they assaulted them and that they emotionally abused them. And Kwite published a video, an hour-and-a-half long video saying his response, I guess, with regard to all of the everything. And we can watch just like the first, let's just hear his introduction about it and see how he talks about it. And then we'll watch the Charlie video. I'm not watching
this. This is my response to several allegations made against me. The most serious of being that I sexually assaulted a former friend and ex-partner of mine named Orion in Orlando.
He had to do a face reveal because of it. Yeah. The person, Orion, he said that he was raped by Kwite. And that is a very serious allegation. I haven't seen Charlie's video. I don't know who is, I don't know everything because I haven't watched it or kept up with it.
A former friend and ex-partner of mine named Orion in Orlando, Florida on February 18th, 2018. This is patently false and completely untrue. Not only did I not assault Orion, I never had any sexual contact with him in any way, shape, or form. I have a lot of evidence to share backing what I say in this video, including a recording of Orion giving a testimony of this exact interaction from late 2018 that directly contradicts his current version of events. I've prepared what I have to say ahead of time, as this is something I wanted to make sure I had my thoughts in order for when discussing, so if you see my eyes flitting back and forth, that's why. I intend this as a comprehensive look at my time knowing Orion and afterwards, but certain things will be addressed out of order as I need to touch on the most severe allegations first. This video will be split into chapters for easy navigation if you want to jump around or come back to any section later. A very strong content warning on this video for discussions of sexual assault, transphobia, slurs, racism, self-harm, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and more. If any of these topics are sensitive ones for you, please use discretion while watching and make use of the chapters if you feel the need to skip any of these topics for your sake. Orion claims I assaulted him in the backseat of his car outside of the Cinemark XD Theater in Orlando before we went inside to watch a 3:40 p.m. showing of Black Panther. Orion alleged that mid-intercourse, I didn't listen to him when he said that I was hurting him, and when he told me to stop, I apparently didn't until some time after he had asked, and that all the way through the act, I was continuously telling him, this is what you wanted. Orion says when I did stop, it was only because I got bored of the sex and then I exited the car. He goes on to say that after we got into the theater that I had him buy me popcorn to make up for it. This is entirely false on multiple levels, and I have no idea why Orion would this egregiously and ridiculously fabricate a crime of this magnitude. This clip is of Orion describing the same day the assault allegedly took place in a video 4.5 years ago, where he has a very different account of how he felt about that day, even in hindsight looking back at it.
Cut to February, where we met up for the second time, and I remember it was February because we went to see Black Panther. It was fun, and I distinctly remember him getting out of my car, but stopping midway and saying, just remember I really care about you, and then closing the door, which made me feel really good because, you know, this was my best friend. We had met up for the second time. He still cares about me.
Throughout the entire video, that clip is taken from a testimony given much closer to when the assault allegedly took place. The topic of sexual or romantic activity between me and Orion is not mentioned a single time. I'll be going through everything I've been able to gather around mine and Orion's interactions to give my side of how the time we knew each other went and to demonstrate what things Orion alleges happened that conflict with what I have to show. Every single thing I have been accused of, not just from this set of allegations, but the one Orion tried to spread in that video from 2018, have never once been substantiated by any solid evidence other than testimony. The only thing ever backing any accusations Orion made against me was a person saying that something happened, oftentimes while contradicting other things they said when giving separate testimonies. Currently, outside of proving that me and Orion did know each other, did meet up in person, and discussed sexual intimacy over text at some point, none of which is proof of anything malicious, Orion has failed to prove anything he claims I have done. This is my account of that day. When we met up on February 18th, at one point, me and Orion were in a shopping center and came across a store that sold plushies. I saw one I liked that I was looking to buy for myself as a keepsake of the trip. Orion, through what I assume was trying to be polite, didn't want to let me pay for the plush and was very insistent that I let him cover the cost. In general, I like to pay for my own things when out with friends, and around this time is when YouTube was first doing well for me, so I knew I'd have money coming in not far down the line. This made me want to pay for my own things even more. When any of y'all first got a job as a kid or a new position that gave you a higher level of income for the first time, I'm sure you felt the same way. You want to use the money you feel for the first time that you've earned yourself to do things for yourself. This plush was not a shared cost. It was something I wanted to get specifically for me. I genuinely did not want Orion to pay for my stuff when I felt I could finally do so on my own. That is more than likely a pride thing, but it is how I was. I distinctly remember the cashier who was watching us bicker about it at checkout say something along the lines of, sometimes you just gotta let them pay for it, in a cheeky, young love kind of way. After going back and forth on it some, I directly communicated to Orion that I would be more comfortable if he let me pay for it myself, and I tried to be as direct and clear with this as possible. In response, Orion said something to the effect of, okay, I'll let you buy it if you give me a kiss later. This was a weirdly identical mirror to a similar situation that happened over text the day before, which I will be sharing. This time though, I didn't get to just put the phone down and not engage. I'm actively looking to buy this thing in the moment, and Orion is right in front of me. I regret agreeing to their proposal in hindsight, and maybe if I hadn't, Orion would have stopped pushing at some point, but in this somewhat awkward situation, my brain sees that as the most immediate way out of an uncomfortable spot and to pay for the item myself like I wanted. At the time, I took the comment to be lighthearted and honestly didn't think it was something that was going to get followed through on. Later that day though, Orion and I are in the driver's seat and passenger seat of his car respectively when the topic of the kiss comes up again. What I'm about to say is not a standard of consent I would have applied to anybody else back then, and it's something I've learned is also true for me and I'm deserving of as I got older. Back then though, I was a lot younger, I was 17 and had complete shit for brains. In my head I'm thinking, fuck, that's right, I did agree to that. Since it's come up again, I'm thinking that Orion meant it seriously and I misread the situation, and that it would be shitty to now pull out of something I'd already committed to. That is not how consent works in the slightest, even on something as relatively small as a kiss, but despite my hesitance, I did kiss Orion once. That's it. That's all we ever did. Immediately after, I was feeling weird about it. I wasn't exactly enthusiastic about the event in the first place, and I didn't want to go any further with it, so we didn't. I am not trying to paint this as some instance of me being assaulted or violated, and me and Orion can both only give our personal accounts as there wasn't a camera in the car that day, but the dynamic we had regarding sex and intimate contact is significantly different than what Orion made it out to be. And my account is far more in line with not only incidents prior to the meetup, but the type of thing Orion was saying he'd do to me just the day before. Like I said, I never had sex with Orion, and the popcorn I had him apparently buy for me is something I explicitly said the day before we met up that I would buy for Orion. After asking multiple times how much I owed Orion for my movie ticket, he wouldn't let me pay him.
If this screenshot isn't doctored, it's really bad. Oh man. Why? Let me pull up the twit longer. I'll press play while I look for this.
Him back for the cost. Again, this is literally the day before we saw each other in real life, and I was in that same mindset of wanting to pay for my own things with my own money. I responded to him, fine, then I'm buying your snacks, as that was meant as a compromise on my part. I figured if he wasn't going to budge on the tickets, I can at least do this thing to contribute, even if it was a bit uneven. In my head, it was at least something. We go back and forth over text where Orion keeps trying not to let me buy even his snacks, but I'm standing my ground, and after the third time he tried to get me to not pay for it, I just stopped responding because I had already said what I planned on doing for my part. Over an hour passes by after that, and Orion is still insistent on this. He texted me a brand new proposal saying, if you pay for snacks, I will smooch you. You don't want that now, do you? And yeah.
The reason why I said what I said, so this screenshot shows, we're going to watch the Charlie video on this because I think watching the entire thing is maybe a little bit too much. If this is real, in Orion's twit longer, he specifically says, this is the paragraph that Orion released. No, Orion goes by he, him. In the backseat of my own car, he raped me, all the while telling him how it hurt and how I didn't want to do it anymore. He kept telling me this is what you wanted, but soon got bored of it and got out. I sat in the car by myself for a bit before going and joining him in the movie we planned to see together. And to make up, he had me buy him popcorn. This is, if these screenshots are real, this is such a weird thing to lie about. This is a very weird thing to say. Again, big if, okay? Big if. If Kwite did not alter this screenshot, and this is a real screenshot, this being even in here is very questionable. When there are literally messages of him saying, no, I will buy the snacks. No, please, let me buy. It would be such a weird, this is such a weird detail to lie about, which makes me concerned about the rest of it. Not to say that the rest of it can't be real. To be clear, I'm just saying that like, you can totally misremember things. If you had a traumatic experience, it's very normal to not remember the events surrounding that, but it is very concerning. Why is it that when we're talking about rape allegations, a very serious thing, people say this whole thing is pure mental illness and teenager drama? You think rape accusations are teenager drama? Do I have to play the clip again? Juicers, are there any juicers in chat? Juicers, rise up.
You guys are naming people that are like sex offenders and out there racist and like fucking people that promote harm and shit. Yo, that's not canceled. That's the law. That's the fucking law. law!
with me,
When you
chat.
do a crime,
At
you go to
the
jail!
time
You're
will
not
be
cancelled!
6:03
You're a criminal!
PM. Beep.
That's the law. This is not drama, dude. This is like a serious rape allegation against someone. Would you think it's funny teenager drama if someone came out against you with a rape allegation? No. But again, I'm not watching an hour and a half of this. I'm sorry. I don't have the willpower to do that. But I did want to watch Charlie's video. I wanted to see what he had to say first.
For the last time, sir, you are not based and red-pilled. You are on the no-fly list.
What is this? What is wrong with you, dude? This person has BPD. No, this Orient person has BPD. We saw this on KNK last night. What's KNK, chat? Orly is mentally ill. This is textbook BPD. You know you can have BPD and get raped. Blaming it on BPD is so gross. It is so gross to people who have BPD and don't do shit. Crucify me if you want to. Why do they always say that? Crucify me. My mom had BPD and did this type of stuff all the time. Well, maybe your mom was a bitch. My mom didn't have BPD and she did stupid shit all the time. I have met and made lots of friends with people who have BPD and are great people. This blanket, well, I had an experience with someone who had this thing and now I'm going to claim it for everyone else. I have BPD and I don't do this? Yeah. I don't know, man. Weird stuff. Okay, let's watch the Charlie video on this, please.
A few weeks ago, a YouTuber named Kwite came under fire and got put in the crosshairs of the entire internet after some extremely serious allegations were levied against him. The allegations came from one person on Twitter in particular who released a massive document that accused him of some truly heinous things. And as a result, his ham was getting steamed, they were calling him a criminal, and just like the Thornberrys, Twitter went a little wild. They were judge, jury, and executioner and decided in the court of public opinion that Kwite was already guilty on everything he was charged with. So they labeled him a rapist. They were no longer allegations, all of it was presented as facts. This was as real as algebra now, and if you said, hey, maybe let's wait to hear from the other side for a moment, you would have been labeled evil. If you even tried to utter the...
I mean, on Twitter, yeah. Twitter has always been and will always be a shithole where people have no nuance whatsoever. One day, maybe they will, but not anytime soon. But I mean, I said this at the time. I say this every time. I say that, if a victim comes out, I will believe them until I have reason to stop believing them. I would much rather side with a potential liar than a potential rapist. But if someone comes out and they explain everything and they show proof of all of their claims and they say none of this happened, here's this, and there is no comment made by the initial party, then yeah, I will change my opinion. But I've said this. I think it's just if you're on Twitter, you have Twitter brain and you're fucked. But there are a lot of people who I think do the same thing. Just I will side with the victim, and when I'm provided evidence that shows that the victim lied, then I will change my mind.
The forbidden phrase of innocent until proven guilty, you would have been burned at the stake like it was the fucking Salem witch trials. It's also important to mention that it was more than rape too. They threw the entire kitchen sink at him. Every fucking horrible term you could imagine was all getting flushed down Kwite like he was a goddamn public toilet. He was labeled many awful things, and 2 days ago he came forward to debunk the entire thing in an hour-and-a-half long video, thoroughly going through every single accusation and pretty much tearing it to pieces with an incredible amount of evidence, and honestly just an incredible amount of bravery with some of the things that he publicly owns up to. Very personal, very big insecurities, such as sexual performance and his anxiety regarding anything sexual, and even admitting to still being a virgin. There was a lot of things that he talked about here that I know for a fact couldn't have been easy, especially because now he put his face on it. Up until this point, Kwite hid his face. He hid his actual identity, but because of all of these accusations, he was doxxed from it, as I understand, and he wanted to showcase how seriously he was taking everything, so he dropped the mask and the hoodie and put his real face on top of this stinky shit cake that he was served, and he just brought down the brass tacks and laid out all of the facts as well as all of the context and a significant amount of evidence supporting his claims and debunking the things that the accuser was saying. This is probably one of the strongest rebuttals I've ever seen from an internet content creator when faced with serious allegations. The way Kwite has handled this is very, very impressive. And the response to it has been overwhelmingly positive in favor of Kwite. Now, most people are starting to rally behind Kwite and seeing a lot of the things presented by the accuser were either outright lies or manipulated half-truths or completely misleading series of accounts of situations. It's all just not looking
And
great.
yeah, I want to highlight something really quickly. If you want to say like, I don't know, the vibes are weird, that's fine. If you want to be like, I don't like the vibes, that's fine. Please chat. Let's stay away from psychoanalyzing. Don't make me pull up the moon cat video. Your Honor, the vibes are off. I just want to say one thing. For the people who are saying like, oh, well, he has to be right because he showed his face for the first time ever when he made this video. And you wouldn't do that if you were guilty. Stop. For the people saying like, he's doing it as a publicity stunt so he can get people to trust him. Stop. Oh, he looks really nervous, so he must be guilty. Stop. He looks really nervous, so he must be taking it seriously and he's being honest. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Psychoanalyzing and all of that garbage is fake. If you don't believe me, listen to someone who is amazing and smart and beautiful and pretty and funny that goes by Mooncat. She has a great video about body language experts and how it's all a scam. All of it. This is it. This is the video. We never finished it, but we got pretty far. It's an amazing video. Please no psychoanalyzing. Let's just listen to the things that they say and let's just like see who has more evidence or whatever and whether or not the victim speaks out again about it. Because you can read basically the takeaway from that Mooncat video. You should watch it yourself and you should definitely sub to her because she's amazing. But the takeaway from that video is that you cannot actually gather information about a stranger based on how they look. Maybe you can tell when a friend of yours is lying. I don't know how many people have metagame during Among Us where you're like, oh, fucking Kyle's doing the thing again when he's lying. He's doing it. He's doing the thing where he starts saying and a lot. Yep, he's lying. He's lying. Yep. Maybe if you're friends with someone and you know someone, you know their lying tics, you know what they say and how they act when they're lying. If you're talking about a complete stranger, please don't. You don't know what that person looks like when they're lying or when they're not lying. I think it's a matter of intention, respect, and evidence that drives how serious he's taking this. Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree. Kyle's punching the drywall again. He only ever does that when he's lying. Yeah. If you know your friends and family very well, you know when they're lying and you know when they're not. None of us in here know Kwite personally. None of us. So we should judge his statements based on their validity.
And in response, they've also posted I guess what was supposed to be a receipt proving that they've seen a therapist for PTSD, I guess, but that's all really pretty shady and sketchy and also not super important to what's being discussed here. So overall, just isn't looking good for the initial accusations. And I just want to kind of talk about this whole situation, not so much the particulars of it because that's not my place to really talk about it. If you want to see the whole situation, I highly recommend going to Kwite's video to get a full grasp on all of it. What I want to talk about is the mob mentality that instantly formed against Kwite while being completely against hearing his side of it or listening to anyone that wanted to wait before fully forming their opinion. Because I caught a lot of shit for not talking about it for the course of 3 weeks, saying that I was trying to silence the story of a big rapist on YouTube and all kinds of horrible things, just awful shit. And I want to just talk about that because I'm not even surprised because the general mentality on the internet is believe all victims no matter what and don't ask questions because everyone wants to believe the best in people. If a victim is coming forward, it's because they're legitimately a victim and everything they're saying is the truth. Every argument they're making, everything they're presenting is a fact and it's all a 100% account of what actually happened in these situations. And it's kind of a naive way of thinking. Like, it's just extremely trusting. Like my dad. Like a week ago, my dad sent me a text saying, hey bud, I was playing Forza, because I got my dad into Forza, he's become quite the gamer now. I was playing Forza and I got a message from someone saying that I was really good and he wanted me to like sign up for his team or something, but I can't get the website to work. And I panicked, I was like, holy fuck dad, this is absolutely a scam, don't you dare go to that site or sign up for whatever he's trying to say.
I gotta say, not in big agreement about all that. Not in agreement about all that. I don't know about all that. First of all, Charlie is still a normie. Second of all, I think the problem is that straight cis men have a harder time recognizing misogyny in the wild. I think misogyny, and this has always been my opinion, and it would have gotten me canceled if I made content during Gamergate, I would have been like enemy number one. A lot of people push back against the idea that like growing up as a straight cis, especially white man, you just don't see misogyny. You just don't. There are things that other people see that they can talk about and they can say, this is weird, and no one will agree with you. I mean, let's just go back to the origin. Like Anita Sarkeesian, her saying like, hey, a lot of video games tend to hypersexualize women, but in those same video games, there are no men that are hypersexualized. And that's bad. We should have games that have representation of women that is similar to or on the same level of the sexualization of men. Seeing women as property is bad for the teenage male psyche. And so either introduce more male sluts or desexualize some of your women. The best example is the Metal Gear Solid one. It's the saddest thing on the planet, and people still will defend it. People will be like, actually, she needs, she just photosynthesized, so she needs to be wearing ripped tights. She needs to. She needs the sunlight. Meanwhile, I had to find out about this from an actual person who plays the games. There's another character in the Metal Gear Solid world that also photosynthesizes through their skin and is fully clothed all the time. Like, and this is the problem for me. The problem for me is just like, it's the inconsistency. The fans of Metal Gear Solid just came out and said, honestly, I like it because it makes my pee-pee hard. I like to look at Kwite in ripped tights because it make my pee-pee hard. I'd be like, okay, at least you're being honest, at least you're being honest. But it's the people that would go, like, they would fucking do the most crazy mental gymnastics to be like, she needs to be scantily clad. You don't understand. She needs it. Especially considering that Kojima himself has said, oh, I just wanted her to be sexy, so I made her sexy. Just say that you want her to be hot and that you like that. Like, just say that. Just say that. How should have the situation been handled to avoid negative things happening, like Quite getting doxxed? That's like an internet brain thing. Really quickly, because maybe some people didn't know about this. After the allegations came out, Quite was doxxed, and he had a bunch of people calling him the anti-Asian C-word slur. Please do not ask what it is. Just Google it if you don't know. And if you are doing that, that is weird, man. That's really fucking weird. That's really weird to do. You can critique people and criticize people without being fucking racist. Going back to the content, you guys have to remember, or we all have to remember, that someone like Moist Critical, he covered the Amber Heard trial, and he did not place enough care in his coverage. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp were in a mutually abusive relationship where they abused each other. Why do you have people saying, I stand with Johnny Depp? You can just stand for neither of them. You don't have to stand with one of the abusers. You can just look at the situation and be like, I don't know either of these people. It looks like this was a mutually abusive relationship, and I'm not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole. Both of these people seem like they did kind of shitty things. And like the thing is, it's like, it's not even, I'm not saying that what she did was right. I'm just saying he was also guilty of abuse. Why are we standing with him? Stop. Like, because she accused him. Guys, you guys are missing the point. I'm going to say this once and only once, okay? Because of her defaming and using the Me Too movement, come on, that's an obtuse way of looking at it. Just because she defamed him doesn't mean that you have to stand with her or him. You don't have to stand with either of them. And also, she said under oath that he abused her. Was she even like framing him? She just went on publicly and said that he assaulted her, and he did. You don't have to stand with either of them. You don't have to pick one of them. True, but someone had to stand on his side considering the default was to stand with Amber. No, we can just stand with neither of them. You don't need to take a side. No, you can just think both parties did shitty things and it's not your business. You don't actually have to do that. Chatting, no one likes a fence sitter. This is like, there are a few times you're allowed to be a centrist, and this is one of them. And this was like, I mean, Critical, he covered the Amber Heard stuff, and he really went in on Amber Heard, and he really didn't do the same. Like, I was so grossed out by the number of like TikToks that I was seeing on my Twitter feed, because I don't use TikTok, of people putting together Chad compilations of Johnny Depp. That is weird that you are making a fan cam for a literal abuser. It made me think that Charlie was right-wing by association, yeah. But aren't you contradicting yourself by saying you auto-believe accusers of abuse and others shouldn't jump to the defense of the accused? No, these are both one and the same. I think the person accused, if they feel like the other person was lying about them, they should release a statement that they took time working on. Maybe they hired a lawyer, maybe they hired a PR person, and they should go through all of the problems with what someone said. But in a culture and a society where people don't believe women, you should be one of the people that do. When you see information that contradicts that, then you can change your mind. But you shouldn't reflexively be like, well, a woman is speaking, I don't believe her. I love Johnny Depp, I don't believe her, she's probably lying. That's it. It's just being willing to believe this. You know what I mean?
As Hassan says, believe women just mean don't instantly disbelieve women.
Yes.
Telling you it's not real. And I know that was probably a tough pill to swallow for him. It probably broke his heart because he responded with like, oh, okay, maybe he didn't think I was good. And I had to reassure him. I was like, no, Dad, I'm sure that wasn't the case. You were probably clapping cheeks out there. He's just, he's not being truthful with you. You can't just immediately trust complete strangers all the time. Especially in a situation where there's multiple people involved in the situation, it's important to get all sides of it so you get a full scope, a full educated look at everything going on. There's nothing wrong with seeing someone come forward and being like, holy shit, this is terrible, I'm sorry to hear all of that, but I'd like to wait to see all the other sides involved here before I fully form an opinion on all of this. Like, it's not that I don't believe you, it's that I'd like to wait to see everything before I fully understand what was going on here. And you can still, of course, be supportive of the victim that came forward, like, wow, I'm really sorry to read all of these things, it's fucking horrible. But you don't have to immediately start getting the pitchforks and the fucking shield out, ready to go fight the person that's accused without ever even hearing their side first, right?
So this
Because
is the part
sad
where I'm at, where it's like, I think you should side with the person that is coming out with their story just because of how hard it is or how frequently people don't believe women. But that doesn't mean you should go and start attacking the abuser. If someone comes out, a content creator I like, because that's a very important detail, you can side with the person who is coming out and then not immediately go and attack the other person and be like, I'm listening to you, I hear you, I believe you. And then when the other person comes out with their story, you read it and you try and genuinely figure out who is saying what and what is true and what's not true. For most people, what does siding with them look like? I think siding with them just looks like not immediately running to say, you're a liar. Where's the evidence? Where's the proof? Why didn't you go to the police? I think you just not contributing to that is siding with them. I'm not saying you have to like fucking give them money or like be in their replies being like, yes, I believe you, queen. It just means not immediately discrediting what they're saying because they didn't go to the police fast enough, because they didn't have a rape kit done, because they didn't have enough screenshots for everything. That's all. Also, yeah, tap the sign again. Women get nothing for coming out against sexual assault allegations. Yep, exactly. Don't reflexively disbelieve. Exactly. So I don't want to see any chatters being like, well, why would but you have to listen to all sides, but you don't understand denims. How can you do that? Literally, all I'm saying is don't immediately disbelieve the victim. That's it. It's not that crazy of a concept. Someone comes out, it shouldn't just be your first response to be like, okay, let me try and find some holes in this. Well, it looks like she said she posted a text message on 2014. Let's see here. And this text message here. Like, don't be that person. Just don't. It's poor phrasing on Charlie's part. A little bit of poor phrasing, yeah.
The reality is, people can lie. That includes accusers that are coming forward against somebody. They could be telling some things that aren't entirely truthful, or maybe are a little misremembered or misleading. There have been cases of people just outright making shit up in order to hurt someone that they had a falling out with. There's been an unreal amount of cases like that. And it's something that I've learned
What's interesting is, like, I think out of all of the Twitlongers I've seen about people coming out against abuse that they suffered from one content creator or another, I think I've seen probably over 30 at this point on my 2 years on the internet covering this as a job. And that's only the ones that I've seen. And out of all of those, since the entire time of being on the internet, I've only seen one fake allegation. Only one ever. And that was what was her name? I think she was accusing Asian Andy. Was that his name? I really hope that was his name. There was someone that came out against him and he like posted screenshots and everything. He had other people who were able to verify his side of the story. And it looked like the person who accused him was just, they put a lot of things in their document that never happened. But again, that's one incident.
A very quick, great example is Mick Gordon versus Bethesda. With the Doom OST, Doom Eternal OST, there was a huge hoopla, a big fucking gross meatball of controversy in terms of Mick Gordon versus Bethesda. One of the higher-ups made a Reddit post accusing Mick Gordon of being lazy. It's all his fault.
Oh, yeah, and exactly. You're fighting against something much deeper as well. It's a lack of empathy combined with selfishness plus sexism. I think more importantly, it's that like a lot of people just can't see the other perspective. I think for a lot of men online, especially male content creators, when they see Twitlongers, they see them from the lens of their male perspective. If you pull basically any content creator, they will tell you their biggest fear is being canceled. Every single content creator that you can pull online will tell you their biggest fear is getting canceled, because then they lose all of their credibility, all of their connections, all of their audience, everything like that. And so for a lot of men who read it, they read the Twitlonger and they think, what if this was a fake allegation against me? Would people side with fake allegations against me? I think that's where the mentality comes from, that it becomes a little bit harder for men to empathize with women in that regard. And I get that, like that would suck, but the percentage of false rape accusations is so so small. It's so small. And most people have no reason to do it. You don't get clout from speaking out against your abuser. You don't. You can literally go through LSF, find every single post that has allegation in the title, check every single one of the women that spoke out against the abuse that they suffered, and you will go and check their Twitch page and see that they did not grow. They did not become a bigger streamer or a bigger YouTuber or get more clout. In fact, if you speak to any of the women personally, they will tell you the only thing that came out from it was getting more harassment. Every single person that I've spoken to that has had to deal with something like this, the only thing that happens is that they get more harassment and all of their comments become just like, if they have a YouTube, their comment section is fucked. If they have a Twitch, their chat is fucked.
OST's kind of shitty. Mick Gordon's just awful to work with. And I believed it. I took him at face value, even though he never even really provided real evidence to support his claims. It's just one of those things of, well, why would he come forward and lie about it? You know, I trusted him. He was in a position of power, too, where it'd be really weird to risk his entire reputation and the reputation of his company to just outright lie about one of the most beloved artists in the video game soundtrack space. So it just didn't make sense to me, so I took it at face value. Like, damn, Mick Gordon must just be a lazy asshole. And you already know how that fairy tale ends. 2 years later, Mick Gordon drops one of the fattest fuck yous of all time with an unreal amount of
I
evidence.
don't know who this person is. I'm completely under a rock. I have no idea who Mick Gordon is.
And receipts to debunk everything that was claimed by Bethesda and highlight just how awful all of it was and who was really responsible for the shittiness of the OST. Still one of the finest
Doom soundtrack.
finest pieces of reverse like Uno card ever. And it came 2 years later after I and many others had already fully made their judgment on Mick Gordon's character based off of one accuser. And unfortunately, history repeated itself here, and everyone accepted all of these allegations as fact based on one accuser's account of all of it. And these are life-ruining accusations, fucking rape and a ton of other horrible things. Like, those aren't goofy little silly accusations. That's not something you toss out willy-nilly like a fucking baseball. That can ruin your life. That will sink you. And people just ran with it. Didn't ask questions. Didn't
interesting analogy. Very interesting analogy.
care to hear Kwite's side of anything. Everything Kwite did, they criticized. Like, I think he took down his Discord server and they took that as a deeper admission of guilt. Everything that happened only confirmed the accusations must be real. Everything that didn't happen, the longer Kwite waited, the more and more people were convinced that everything was truthful there because he's taking so long to respond. The guilt must be weighing him down.
Yeah, it's this psychoanalyzing shit that I hate. If you take too long to make a video, people who don't like you will say, oh, well, you were trying to come up with excuses and you needed time to get a PR team to put together a story to disprove the victim, you know? And then if you upload it too soon, it's like, why were you already ready with this? That's very guilty of you to already be ready.
And they kept pushing that everywhere. Twitter, all over the place. And now he's responded, and the shoe's on the other foot. A lot of the people that were calling him a rapist have at least publicly eaten shit on it and apologized to him, which is nice. Not all of them. There's some holdouts there that just still outright refuse to even listen to him, which is always the worst fucking mentality ever, where, oh, I heard one side, I don't want to hear the other. Doesn't matter.
The only time you don't hear the other side is if the person you're talking to is a literal Nazi. Because Nazis will never tell you anything useful or valid or important or based in science or logic. Everything else, you should always be willing to listen. I draw the line at Nazis. I'm sorry. If you unironically call yourself like a groyper or like a Nazi or a neo-Nazi or whatever, or you say some shit about like wanting to defend the white race, I'm zoning out. I'm zoning the fuck out. I don't give a fuck. You're not going to tell me anything useful. Every other instance, you should always be willing to listen.
What you say, I will always think this way of you. Those fucking losers grind my ass so hard because it's clear you don't care about the truth. You just want somebody to hate. And this has given you a perfect excuse to hate someone. You have a new villain to attack because you didn't even want to hear the side that would offer more of an insight and help you get closer to the truth of the situation. It didn't fucking matter to you. You just want to stay mad forever and continue to live this miserable life of finding people to hate online and having this list of people that you feel justified.
Oh man, I thought this video was gonna have some other things in it, but it doesn't have anything in it. No, do I have to fucking watch this whole video? I don't want to spend stream doing this.
To attack and say horrible things to and about. It's fucking tragic. I hate that shit. But luckily, that's not everyone. That's only a small group of people that are for some reason still adopting that mindset. But yeah, anyway, just kind of wanted to talk about all of this because it's a pretty awful situation that I thought was worth going over at least a little bit. That's about it. See ya.
So how exactly does Kwite prove innocent when he posted an hour-long video doxing his own face and people still don't even give him leniency? Okay, first of all, I'm pretty sure doxing is non-consensual in nature. If you are choosing to show your face, that isn't you doxing your face. I'm pretty sure that that's not how that word is used. But more importantly, I don't care that he posted an hour-long video. I don't care that he showed his face. I don't care about those things. I don't want to be biased, and those are things that would impact my judgment. I care about what he posted. If all the screenshots are real and all the story makes sense and he has other people with something to lose that back up his story, that's what I care about. But I also think you're conflating different people. This is something that happens a lot in chat. And I implore all of you to double check yourself, mostly because I do this a lot. And I used to do it way more, and I've started to like reel it back in now that I've noticed myself doing it. So I want to use this as an opportunity to tell all of you about this terrible thing. It is very easy to conflate one person with an entire group of people. I see this happens in chat a lot. People will come in chat and they will start talking to me, and then they'll start debating chat, and then they will conflate chat with my opinions, and my opinions are not that of the other 2,000 people in chat. We are different, all different people. I can't control other people not giving him leniency. I can only tell you what my opinion is. That's it. I'm sorry if that's disappointing, but this stream is just my opinion. I don't speak for the hive mind that is Twitter. I don't know what'll make them change their mind. Genuinely, I don't know. And I don't think anyone in here knows. How the fuck do you talk to people who say that like Hassan went to a brothel with underage girls? What do you tell them to convince them that they're wrong? That the brothel was raided not because it had minors, but because of tax purposes? What do you do? Like, this person is like completely delusional, and there's nothing you can do to like even convince them. Most of these people are like, they are convinced. Or like the QAnon people. What the fuck do you do when like there are millions of people in your country that think that the election was stolen? There's not much you can do there. They're just like flat earth people, nothing based in reality. Yeah, exactly. If there are people on the internet that are like, yeah, well, I don't care. Kwite can say anything he wants and I'm not going to believe him. I don't care. I don't care. There's nothing you can do about those people. When you find out how to deal with people who refuse to engage in like reality, let me know. Please, I would love to be the first person to find out, okay? But I will only judge him based on the content of the video. I want to watch up to here, and I want to watch up to the 15-minute mark, and that's it. Because I think these categories might be interesting or might have information in them that is valuable, whereas the rest of these are like, I guess, like him talking about some other stuff. So I would like to just know his side of the events that happened, you know?
As that was meant as a compromise on my part. I figured if he wasn't going to budge on the tickets, I can at least do this thing to contribute, even if it was a bit uneven. In my head, it was at least something. We go back and forth over text where Orion keeps trying not to let me buy even his snacks, but I'm standing my ground, and after the third time he tried to get me to not pay for it, I just stopped responding because I had already said what I planned on doing for my part. Over an hour passes by after that, and Orion is still insistent on this. He texted me a brand new proposal saying, if you pay for snacks, I will smooch you. You don't want that now, do you? And yeah, quite frankly, I didn't want that. This is a lighthearted text exchange, so I'm not going to send in all caps, I do not consent or something like that, but I try to communicate that I don't want to in a relatively playful but straightforward way. I'll pay for them and dodge your affection. And even at that point, Orion still wasn't taking no for an answer. He doubled down and said he was going to smooch me anyways. Nah, you can't dodge the smooch. It will find you and it will smooch when you least expect it. There is no dodging, only smooch. Maybe he meant that playfully, but I didn't respond to it because I was uncomfortable with the way he was talking to me. I'd said my piece on how I felt about buying the snacks as well as getting kissed, and he just kept going. I'm sure that when Orion tried to pay for my stuff, it was meant with good intentions. But in these moments, I set a clear boundary of what I preferred that he essentially said he'd only respect conditionally. This type of insistent behavior, specifically to pay for things, aren't isolated incidents. Orion even admits he has this tendency in the same testimony I shared a clip of earlier.
He drove halfway and I drove to a certain spot and we agreed to meet up. I took him around town and I paid for everything because I insisted that since I was the host, it was my job.
In regards to physical intimacy, the entire time me and Orion knew each other, I was the one most often expressing my hesitance on the matter, backing out because I got cold feet, or just outright denying to do intimate things with him. Meanwhile, Orion was always the one more forward about engaging in physical intimacy. Even if sometimes it was in a lighthearted context, Orion had a disregard for my personal choices and boundaries that I had expressed to them, often persisting beyond me showing clear clear discomfort and continuing to press even when I had directly declined the physical intimacy he would propose. One of the screenshots Orion used as proof of his claims is literally Orion floating and initiating the idea of us hooking up when we see each other, and my response is being unsure, then stating a reason why I wouldn't want to do it. He also cropped out the next message where he's the one to push for it even further by asking if I have condoms. You could read that as him trying to give solutions to a problem that I brought up, but I personally didn't want to continue with that discussion because I wasn't comfortable. Orion says that we had been on and off flirting and talked about how if we were both single and virgins, we would take each other's virginity. This is not something that was ever formally and fully agreed upon from my end, and much less as something we do at some specific place or time. The virginity thing was first mentioned over half a year earlier in August 2017, where Orion was the one to originally propose the idea in a voice call, and I was the one who wanted to think on it further. While I don't have a recording of that call for the exact wording, Orion specified that a heart message he sent was platonic, and in response, I joked that it didn't seem very platonic, just straight up gay. That's because we weren't talking about just cuddling or something in that vein. He had proposed explicitly having intercourse, and I was the one still unsure about it. The reason I was in Florida was never to hook up with Orion. I was vacationing with my family. Orion was always aware of this, and I only planned to see Orion in Orlando because he was someone I knew who lived in the area. Another time, on December 26, 2017, after a voice call and small...
And if the person in the video, Kwite, is talking about Orion with he, him pronouns, what do you guys think? Very simple. Okay, chat. Very simple. Not difficult at all. What I'm saying is Orion is getting grace here because he's biologically female. I feel like some people just chat to chat. I feel like some people just be chatting. I don't see a single person in chat that is giving Orion extra grace. Are you guys aware? Maybe there's just people, because I brought it up multiple times, but maybe I need to define it for people. So we'll define it really quickly. The act of pretending to argue about or deal with a problem, often to avoid dealing with the most important problem. All this political shadowboxing, but it'll make it more difficult to reach agreement on important legislation. More commonly, it is used as this here. Shadowboxing is slang for attacking your own straw man. So you invent a straw man and then you attack them, and that's shadowboxing because you're boxing nothing. If you find yourself saying, I feel like people are being really blah because of blah, and you don't have a person that you are directly talking to or about, please make sure you aren't shadowboxing. What I'm saying is Orion getting grace here because he's biological female. I haven't seen anyone even say anything remotely close to this. Please check yourselves before you wreck yourselves, chat. Please make sure you are not shadowboxing. If you have a criticism with what someone else is saying, just directly message them. If someone else says something, you can message them, reply, make a thread, and say, hey, I feel like you're being very generous right now because X, Y, and Z.
Exchange, Orion asked me to come down south, and at the time, I straight up said no. Where Orion then jumps to the reason for this being, oh yeah, your penis no working. Essentially assuming the reason I wouldn't come down was specifically because of not being able to do sexual things, when I'm not the one who has ever been shown to be the person most concerned about doing that. My penis not working, meaning my performance issues, are another thing that I'll get into shortly, but even though at the time I probably meant my response lightheartedly, as when it happened, I did see this conversation as just jibbing with a friend. When I said, this is why I don't hang out with you, it still has a pretty clear undertone on how I felt about the situation. Another time, on October 28th, 2017, Orion tried calling me, and when I didn't pick up, he said this, I know you're online, fuck you. If you don't pick up, I'm gonna fuck you. I'm pretty explicit when I say in response, don't fuck me, and then I'm busy. Busy being an e-thought, okay? I will fuck you. You didn't pick up, I don't make the rules. I didn't have a strong reaction back then, as it seemed pretty lighthearted, but also because this was how Orion would joke towards me being busy or denying them things fairly regularly. When I said no to having Orion on a podcast I had, he said he'd suck me off if I did. When he asked me for a Discord rank and I said no, Orion said they'd fuck my ass. And on the rare occasion you do see me reciprocate a sexual advance, like the Skype log where I tell him you have to draw porn and Orion says I will, it is still a topic that Orion was the first to bring up the idea of, had initiated by sending me explicit pictures he had drawn himself, and well after the last time I had said anything concerning the topic, Orion would continue to mention as something he was willing to do. All this still being something only happening over the internet, where it required no actual physical contact on my part, making my anxiety around it much more manageable. Orion claimed that we are both ex-friends and partners who had been in an on and off relationship from sometime in 2017 till February 2018. The screenshot Orion showed of him asking who he could tell about us dating, where I respond that I prefer to keep it to mutual friends, but I ultimately trust his judgment with whoever. That was said in the only period of time we have both agreed on the term dating, a period of time that lasted less than 2 days. What Orion never showed was that at the end of that conversation those lines were cherry-picked from, there was an abrupt tone shift where the conversation switched from something two people freshly in a new relationship might say to each other to something more like strangers making small talk for the first time. This is because the night before, barely a day into us being together, I broke it off. The relationship started because I told Orion I had a crush on him after meeting up for the first time in June 2017. But I was also the one who just as quickly broke it off. I don't have a recording of this phone call saved, but all the reasoning I stated in the call was explicitly mentioned and discussed in that text conversation where we spoke with each other more like coworkers than good friends or partners. It confirms that I was the one who ended it because I was scared I'd made the wrong and a rash decision and had only gone to Orion as a rebound. I was coming off the back of a very bad breakup with an ex-boyfriend who started dating another friend of ours just a day or two after saying me and him should call it quits. And while that technically didn't overlap with the time we were together, it felt like my ex had cheated on me twice within 4 months at that point. And while I'm older and mostly over it now, it hurt a lot at the time. It was just a week after that breakup that I saw Orion and this whole relationship dialogue happened and then ended. Well, in this instance, it was me who admitted having feelings for and wanting to become closer in a romantic way with Orion. At no point did we ever do anything sexually intimate outside of sending flirtatious messages within that time frame and outside of it. And it was also me who called off taking our friendship to that next level of intimacy because I was again the one getting cold feet from my nerves around the situation. My apprehension when it comes to sexual contact is not limited to Orion. Not only did I never have sex with him, I have never had sex with anyone. Even as of recording this video, I am still a virgin. It has been a long-running insecurity of mine. Due to my general focus on work, the pandemic killing the ability to pursue anything in that vein for years, as well as causing me to backslide in my social ability and confidence like it did most people, a fair few of my friends have had to deal with me drunkenly venting about my nervousness around it. And it's something I have had casual discussions with my friends about nearly a year and a half after Orion claimed I had raped him. The part in those DMs where I mentioned me getting my penis sucked one time was in reference to summer 2018, right after my senior year ended. I was talking to a girl I was friends with from my school who had thrown a graduation party where we ended up making out. One of the nights after, I ended up at their place again and I got fellatio from them. I told my friend Ethan that we didn't go any farther because I didn't have condoms on me, but what I didn't mention was that I had her stop the oral early because I couldn't feel it or get my penis entirely hard. I can masturbate on my own just fine, but when it comes time to do the deed with someone else, my nerves have stopped me from being able to perform because I have incredibly bad sexual anxiety when it comes to the actual physical act. It's to the point where every time I've been in a real life sexual situation, it has caused me to be the one to back out of them before it can ever fully progress to intercourse. One person I did mention this insecurity to was Orion, who in late 2017 I vented to about an earlier incident where a boyfriend I had at the time was giving me a hand job and I just could not get it up all the way or finish. I was already an insecure teenage virgin and I was stupidly embarrassed about having these performance issues. So I essentially begged Orion not to share what I confided in him. Me and that boyfriend tried more than once and never figured it out, and my unsuccessful attempts to get it up persisted until just 3 months before the alleged rape, at which point me and my then boyfriend had broken up, so I was not doing it with anyone at all. That is a major issue I would have had to figure out very quickly in the time between those messages in February when Orion says the assault happened. Further showing he knew about this still persistent issue and insecurity of mine, you might remember a message I showed earlier where he poked fun at me for my dick not working in regards to me not wanting to meet up with Orion down south. The cold feet I get with sexual contact is something I've had another stunted interaction because of as recently as February of this year. The last day I was in Brighton in early February, I was making out with a guy who I got on with in a club named Club Revenge. But I chickened out of doing more and left the club early because I was nervous and I had a flight home in the morning. It was to the point where he even offered to come over just to keep me company because of how anxious I ended up getting in the club. This has been a continuous issue, not just with getting it up, but engaging in sex in general that has made me incredibly anxious to go all the way with anybody at all. These examples might seem sparse, but there are so few because they are genuinely the only times I have ever been in a situation close to actual sexual intimacy, with me failing to follow through every time. Part of this anxiety stems from me having also been sexually assaulted in the past, both before the time Orion alleges I assaulted them and after. Once by a coworker over twice my age when I was 17 and working an awful fast food job, and the other was in a club when I was 19 by someone who thought I was more into them than I was, but didn't bother to check before putting their hands on me. Pain is not meant to be compared, but I do know what it's like to have your agency taken from you and to feel helpless to do anything about it. Being told over and over again I did the worst version of that to somebody else when I know what it feels like from experience has been soul-crushing. In his twit longer, Orion says that when several months passed after the falling out, that he tried to come out about the alleged emotional abuse he suffered, but that he received harassment and calls to his house telling him to kill himself for it, which only worsened his mental state. This is in reference to a video video I've used several clips of so far while making my arguments that was uploaded by a YouTuber named Tuskspicious, and at the time of the upload went by Oceanus. If Orion
This is all going to be, from my understanding, the rest of this video is just going to be him debunking claims that were made of him. And we are at the 15-minute mark. Yeah, I mean, that's really sad. I don't know how Orion is going to, I don't even know what they're going to say about this. That was really hard to watch. I don't even know what you can say to refute some of this stuff. I have no idea what he could say to refute some of the stuff that's in this video. And this is why I said, don't be the person sending hate messages. Just don't be it. Don't be them. First of all, A, you don't even know if you're going to be right or not. And second of all, just don't do it. There's plenty of people that are going to do it for you, okay? I think you can take information in, see what's happening, not immediately shit on the person that is speaking out, and then you can wait and listen and see if there's anything else that's going to be talked. It's really fucked up. Just be the observer, don't talk, it's easy. Yeah. Getting this off his chest is probably good. Honestly, yeah. It just believe what you want and then shut the fuck up. Exactly. That is my stance. Unless there are instances of people that are very clearly guilty, like the Rich Campbell situation, the fact that Asmongold, being the person that he is, he immediately dropped Rich Campbell and told his entire community, hey, you should side with the victim and please support the victim. And we haven't heard from Rich Campbell since. Yeah, I would say that Azalea wasn't lying and that statement was true and honest. How was this hard to watch? Well, it's a person opening up about their experiences being sexually assaulted. And I personally experience human emotions. And so when someone opens up about how they've been sexually assaulted and how them being sexually assaulted makes them very nervous in sexual situations and they have like an actual trauma from it. Yeah, I personally, when people share those stories, I personally feel bad. Maybe you don't because you're a really smart, like libertarian or whatever the fuck. Good for you. I'm very happy for you that nothing phases you. When other people open up to me about their pain, I can empathize with it. Imagine having to tell the entire internet that you've had experience with getting it hard or sexual abuse. It's going to be out there forever. Yeah. I haven't seen the full video, but I noticed quite a bit of lying in the first 10 minutes, so I realized I need to show my diagnosis. After I post this, I'm logging off for a while, but here's undeniable proof that what I said occurred did.
For an instance of SA in 2018. And Orion's replies were locked so that only people that Orion follows can reply,
That's
and
not
yet their
suspicious.
replies are filled with people accusing him of falsifying the document, showing that parts of it are copy and pasted from the internet, there are proofreading errors, etc. Now, I don't know about all that, I don't work for the FBI, but either way, even if this document was not forged, it's compelling evidence, but it is not undeniable proof by any stretch. And no matter what, it's going to be very difficult for Orion to provide something more compelling than what Kwite's put out when Kwite released literally every message between them that he could apparently get his hands on. And so that's where we are now, with the internet having done a complete 180 to believe.
I think responding to this video by showing that you have PTSD is not the response anyone wants to see. I think what people want to see in a response is he is lying, X, Y, and Z, here is proof of him lying. Or even something as simple as saying, hey, these screenshots are doctored. I think they thought if I disprove one thing, the rest may be wrong too. Yeah, I don't know. It's very sad.